Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Good evening and welcome to Alaska Weather. I'm Sam Albanese from the National Weather Service. Today's weather around the state, somewhat on the benign side. We do have some low pressure that was affecting the Gulf of Alaska and the northern and outer coastal areas of the Panhandle, and low pressure out in the just south of the Aleutian Islands and the eastern Aleutian Islands, causing some weather out there. But generally speaking, pretty benign weather around the state. So what's going on? We'll take a look at the satellite imagery. You can see here in the Bering Sea, we put this loop in motion. Basically, there's this easterly flow. The low pressure is down here by the eastern Aleutians, and you have this somewhat weak easterly flow at the lower levels going across the the Bering Sea and the Aleutian Islands. Now, south of the chain, here's where our jet stream is. It's well south of the Aleutian Islands and the Gulf of Alaska, and that's one of the reasons why most of that weather is staying, most of the active weather is staying out of our area. Taking a look now at the satellite imagery over the Gulf of Alaska, the GO satellite imagery. As we put the loop in motion, we did have this area of low pressure along the North Gulf Coast here. This fed moisture into that region up into the Chilkoot White Pass area. Rain showers or rain was prevalent along this, basically the East Gulf Coast on up into the northern Panhandle. Higher elevations is where there was snow mixed in with that. Taking a look at the satellite loop again, one of the nice things was most of the state actually did see pretty sunny weather over much of the mainland portion of the state. South Central region, Cook Inlet region did keep the clouds in, and then you can see cloudy conditions persisted around the periphery of the state along the Bering Sea coast on up to the Arctic coast, and particularly up in the Arctic coast as we get to our map here. Those clouds were the low-level type clouds, foggy type conditions, flurries were prevalent over the central and eastern Arctic coast, and some light snow fell over the, that's the western Arctic coast, the eastern Arctic coast. We did see some light snow falling there, and that is about where we did have some of the windier conditions, although nothing too bad there. Down in the Gulf of Alaska, here's that low pressure system I was talking about in the satellite imagery. Rain showers south of basically the warm frontal boundary. This is also where the freezing line is, with rain snow mixed or snow in the higher elevations in that northern Panhandle. We did see some scattered rain showers along the Prince William Sound area, as well as some rain showers along the Aleutian Mountains as this little bit of a disturbance moved through there today. Snow showers, isolated type snow showers up along the Alaska Range were occurring today. Down towards the Alaska Peninsula, where we have our low pressure system, there was some rain or rain showers occurring there. Some scattered to isolated snow showers in the eastern Bering Sea, including the Pribilof Islands in St. Paul. And then we had this trough south of the Aleutian Islands, scattered rain showers along that. And in the Aleutian Islands themselves, with that weak flow pattern coming out of the north, there was a mixture of rain and snow showers, although scattered to isolated as well. By tonight, we basically don't have our low pressure along the North Gulf Coast, although in the upper levels there's still a little bit of a weak disturbance there. Expect some scattered mixed rain and snow showers in the eastern Prince William Sound area and up into the Valdez area. Rain showers along that North Gulf Coast towards Yakutat, with some rain showers in the northern half of the Panhandle, mixed with snow up into the Chilkoot White Pass area. Our low pressure system is staying well south of the Gulf, so we're not even really going to be looking at any significant winds along that North Gulf Coast. Cloudy conditions persisting across Kodiak Island and southwestern Alaska. Let's move on up towards the Bering Strait and the Seward Peninsula. Expect flurries and fog there, right on along the western Arctic coast to Barrow and the eastern Arctic coast, flurries with fog. Also in the upper Yukon Valley and the Tanana Valley, as it cools down overnight, expect the radiational cooling to result in some flurries and fog there as well. In the eastern Aleutians and Bering Sea, basically a mixture of rain and snow showers are possible in the Dutch Harbor area with some rain showers over towards Cold Bay, and expect some scattered snow showers in the Pribilof Islands. Down along the remainder of the Aleutian Islands, isolated rain and snow showers at most is what you would expect there. Taking a look at the forecast for Sunday. Southeast Alaska, expect the majority of the Panhandle to actually clear out and have a sunny day tomorrow. Some rain showers are still possible up towards Yakutat, rain and snow showers in the eastern to northern Prince William Sound area. Some flurries and fog in the upper Yukon Valley and the Tanana Valley. Pretty much that'll be in the earlier part of the day. By the afternoon, expect the skies to clear out a bit there. Cloudy conditions over southwestern Alaska with some flurries and fog from the Yukon Delta right on up through the Bering Strait, Seward Peninsula area, Kotzebue Sound, and along the Arctic coast. Across the Alaska Peninsula, we still have this low pressure system sitting here. Rain showers over the Alaska Peninsula with a mixture of rain and snow showers over the eastern Aleutian Islands, scattered snow showers in the eastern Bering Sea, including the Pribilof Islands, and then some mixed rain and snow showers along the Aleutian Islands themselves. Taking a look at the forecast now for Monday. Some rain can be expected in the southern Panhandle as we have this, what's left of that occluded front moving up as a trough into the southern Panhandle. Northern Panhandle, expect generally sunny conditions early on, right on along to the Yakutat area, but cloudy conditions will be developing later in the day across all those areas. The clouds will be filling in. Cloudy conditions across the south central region. The Arctic frontal boundary is basically draping along the Alaska range. North of that, generally cloudy conditions. You may see a flurry or two, but really somewhat benign weather, as I started off the program talking about. Cloudy conditions up along the Arctic coast. And then the main area of activity for Monday is going to be around this low pressure system that's been persisting over the eastern Aleutian Islands and that Alaska Peninsula region, re-intensifying a little bit. Some rain can be expected across the Alaska Peninsula to the eastern Aleutian Islands. There's even a possibility of some snowfall in the Pribilof Islands, as we may see some overrunning over that Arctic frontal boundary, and then also expect isolated to scattered rain and snow showers along the Aleutian Islands. Temperatures around the state today in the 40s throughout southeast Alaska until you get to the northern Panhandle and the North Gulf Coast, upper 30s there. Upper 30s to 40s across the south central region and the North Gulf Coast, 30s as you move further inland, 30s to low 40s in the eastern interior, then to 20s as we move on up towards the Brooks Range. Along the Brooks Range itself in the teens and single digits above and below, well, pretty much below zero along the Arctic coast. Kotzebue Sound area, Seward Peninsula, some temperatures above zero, some temperatures below zero in the single digits to even the teens above zero. Teens as we get on down towards the southern portions of Norton Sound and down into the 20s as we kind of move on down to the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta. Southwestern Alaska, expect your temperatures, well, the temperatures were in the upper 30s to mid 40s in Bristol Bay, 40s along the Alaska Peninsula, upper 30s along the Aleutian Islands, at least the eastern Aleutian Islands, mid to upper 30s as you move on further out to the west, with temperatures in the mid 20s to near 30 in the Pribilof Islands. Low temperatures for tonight, expect temperatures in southeast Alaska to be in the low to mid 30s along the North Gulf Coast, upper 20s as you get into the northern Prince William Sound area. Temperatures in the mid 20s to upper 20s over the south central region, dropping down into the teens to single digits as we move on up into the eastern interior. Temperatures basically remaining, well, they should remain below zero on the north side of the Brooks Range, below zero temperatures over the northern Seward Peninsula. Not much of a change in your temperatures as you get on over towards the Yukon and Kuskokwim Delta region, where temperatures are going to be in the teens to low 20s. Temperatures will drop into the upper 20s to low 30s in the Bristol Bay area, with mid to upper 30s along the Alaska Peninsula. Mid 20s persisting in the Pribilof Islands, and along the Aleutian Islands, expect your temperatures to be near freezing to the mid 30s. For our highs tomorrow, expect temperatures in the 40s throughout southeast Alaska, low 40s, upper 30s along that North Gulf Coast, south central region. Definitely more like a spring type of a weather pattern with these very warm temperatures. 30s as you get on up into the eastern interior, 30s and 40s over southwestern Alaska and western Alaska. And then as we move on up towards the Seward Peninsula and the Brooks Range, well, that's where winter is still hanging on. Some areas staying below zero, teens above, staying below 0 along the Arctic coast and out across the Alaska Peninsula and the Aleutian Islands, mid-30s to mid-40s, and temperatures staying below freezing in the Pribilof Islands. For our flying weather tomorrow, expect generally VFR conditions throughout the majority of the state, some marginal conditions up into the, looks like the White Mountains there, marginal conditions off the coast of the Prince William Sound area, some marginal conditions across Kodiak Island to the south side of the Alaska Peninsula, marginal to IFR conditions as we move on out towards the eastern and central Bering Sea. For our passes tomorrow, expect VFR conditions for Anik-Tuvik as well as Adigan Pass in the Brooks Range. Down to the Alaska Range, expect VFR conditions for Lake Clark and Merrill Pass, VFR conditions as well for Rainy Pass and Windy Pass. Continuing along the Alaska Range, VFR conditions for both Isabel and Mentasta Pass. Down to the Chugach Mountains, Tonita Pass, expect VFR conditions. Same thing for Portage Pass, VFR conditions. And no surprise, VFR conditions for Chilkoot and White Pass. So generally pretty good flying weather throughout all of the passes. The major passes can be expected tomorrow. Freezing levels basically 2,000 feet along the Gulf Coast area in southeast Alaska, dropping to the surface as we move north of the Alaska Range into the interior, around 1,000 feet across much of the Aleutian Islands. For icing tomorrow, not expecting much in the way of icing, some isolated light rime icing from your freezing level to about 10,000 feet over the eastern Bering Sea, Alaska Peninsula, and eastern to central Aleutian Islands. The jet stream starts off at about 125 knots, well south of the Aleutian Islands, 115 knots south of the Aleutian Islands themselves, a weak jet of about 80 knots into the Gulf of Alaska, and then it takes a dive south down towards the California coast at about 105 knots. Down to that 9,000 foot level, generally speaking, light winds over the mainland. May see a little bit stronger winds up along that eastern Arctic coast, around 30 knots there, 20 knot winds crossing the Kodiak Island area, light winds around 15 knots over the panhandle, light and variable winds across the Aleutian Islands as well as much of the Bering Sea. Down to that 3,000 foot level, light and variable winds over southeast Alaska to the north Gulf Coast, over the mainland. The only place where there may be some stronger winds is just off the coast of the eastern Arctic coast at about 30 knots there. Generally pretty light winds across the Bering Sea, 20 knots across the Pribilof Islands, 15 to 20 knots over the western Aleutian Islands and western Bering Sea. And with such light winds, we're really not expecting much in the way of turbulence throughout the state. Taking a look now at the sea surface temperatures, basically here's your ice edge. Sea surface temperatures right along that ice edge rapidly increase to above freezing, so you're not going to see much ice growth, which then takes us to the ice edge map, and you can see where the ice edge is, and we're not expecting much change over the next several days because the sea surface temperatures are so warm right off the ice edge. That wraps up this portion of the show. Enjoy the segment. Come back for the marine forecast.
Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm Jim Peranto. Flooding can occur in Alaska any time of the year. Whether it's because of heavy rainfall or high volumes of snowmelt, flooding can pose a threat to life and property for Alaskans. But there's another cause of flooding during the springtime that's of great concern to people who live along Alaskan rivers. The cause of the flooding is breakup ice jams. Today I'll be talking with John Madden, who is the Director of the Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management for Alaska, and he'll be telling us about their program called Riverwatch and how that program can help prepare communities during the river breakup season. Welcome back, John.
Thank you for the opportunity.
It's our pleasure to have you back in. We want to talk about the Riverwatch program. I understand it's been around for quite some time, over 30 years, so tell us a little bit about the program.
The Riverwatch is what Alaskans do best. It's Alaskans helping Alaskans. It's a partnership formal between the National Weather Service and the Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. There's a third party of the communities who do live along the rivers. We want to understand what's going on, see it happening so that we can immediately convert the science and the observation into courses of action by the community. It's the best kind of partnership because you go straight from seeing something to doing something.
Well, that leads to my next question. Why is the partnership between the National Weather Service and your division so important to the Riverwatch program?
The National Weather Service has been one of the best supporters that we have amongst the federal family of agencies. It works with us because it can take observations, run it through very elaborate modeling, and make predictions of what's likely to happen. You match up that science along with my divisions, the state division, of how do we convert those predictions into actions. So we have science leading to emergency management and courses of action, leading to the community who must take the immediate actions.
Now, has technology made it easier to predict which rivers will flood?
Well, Alaska has 3,000 rivers, so technology won't help us look at all of them. But the technology like the satellite imagery, the computer modeling, the observations, the communications has increased the accuracy, but those are predictions. What we try to do with River Watch is to fly the rivers with humans. A Weather Service hydrologist or a meteorologist and a Homeland Security and Emergency Management operations specialist. What's happening right now? The technology has helped us focus in on which are the rivers that are likely to present problems to the communities.
So you have both observations on the ground, and then you have the flyovers, and both of those combined are giving you more information on what the rivers are doing.
Yes, and in that flyover, we also have that third member of our partnership, the community. The community understands the river far better than anyone who doesn't live there. The nuances, the curves, the turns, the tides in lower rivers, but also if a condition is leading to something, the local community can partner with the other people in the plain, decide that a course of action is necessary, and then communicate in that community's language directly by radio, saying this is what we see, execute the plan that we've made.
So you mentioned one thing that the community is involved with the River Watch program. What other ways can the communities help out in the River Watch program?
As with many emergencies or hazards that face Alaska, the role of the community is to prepare for that eventuality, be it earthquake or tsunami or river ice jams. Prepare. Know where your shelter is. Know where the power generation is. Where is the high ground? What's your pathway to high ground? Make sure that all of the members of the community are informed and educated and tested, so that when that happens, these floods happen very fast, but when it happens, the community knows what they will do and they can pick the right course of action for that circumstance.
I was online today and I found a guide that I believe it's titled the 2008 Spring Flood Breakup Guide. And it has a whole bunch of information on how communities can prepare themselves. There was contact information. There was some stuff on how the Weather Service is involved with all this. I would imagine you would recommend people going to that guide and really looking at that if they really want to develop a plan for their community.
That guide is very important for the community and the families and individuals. It has guidance for all of them. But it all comes into things happen fast, and the time to think about what you're going to do is before the ice breaks up, before the floods come in. So that preparedness is in that spring guide. It's the counterpart to what we publish in the fall for the coastal communities of the Fall Sea Storm Guide. We issue this out weeks and sometimes months before the season to give the communities that opportunity to go through their drill. Not every river floods every year. Therefore, not every community gets that practice every year. So it can be a few years in between these flood episodes. We don't want people to think that what it was last year means it's what it will be this year. That planning and preparedness and practice is very important for the community to be ready for whatever can come up.
And how is that going with the communities in Alaska? You getting a lot of feedback? Are people really taking this seriously? Numbers, I don't know how many communities are actually have a plan and a disaster plan if this
The
occurs.
river communities have been strong supporters of this. Every time we prepare for this, we include the communities in on the estimates of how this is going to come about, their observations of what's happening, their observations on how it is similar or dissimilar to previous years. All of that feeds back into the state and to the Weather Service to help us refine this. Every community listens very closely because These communities living right at the edge of the river. Their airstrips are usually on the flat land next to the river. Some of their houses are right on the banks. They're very attuned to it, but they cannot make all those observations hundreds of miles upstream. We cooperate with the Canadians as the headwaters of the Yukon break up. That helps us look at the Fort Yukon, Beaver, that area. The Kuskokwim starts breaking up, and looking at what it's doing 100 miles away helps us prepare for 100 miles downstream. They can't do that by themselves, so through this partnership, we all benefit.
Great. There's more information I think people can go to on the internet. There's a couple websites. I believe that's linked from your main Homeland Security website. Correct me if I'm wrong here, John. There's one that's www.ready.alaska.gov.
That's our portal into the full range of hazards facing the state, one of which at this time of year is the river breakup.
Okay, and then the other one is www.flood.alaska.gov. Is that also part of?
It's a newly emerging one which will be a specialty for all of the hazards for floods, both the coastal and the river. So we'll have current information, we'll have links to the Weather Service, other means by which you can report observations. It's a new approach for this year, but we think it's going to be very beneficial for the communities.
Outstanding. And there's another website too, the National Weather Service's River Forecast Center's web page, which is aprfc.arh.noaa.gov. That's another website you might want to bookmark. Thanks, John, for coming in today and talking to us about the River Watch program.
It's always a pleasure, Jim.
And thank you for joining us here on Alaska Weather Facts. Until next time.
Welcome back, and now let's get started again by taking a look at Southeast Alaska's marine weather for Sunday. Southeast winds 15 knots in the southern inside waters, east to northeast 20 knots as you move up to the central inside waters with north winds. Now, most of the day on Sunday, those winds are going to be about 15 knots. They will be increasing in the evening to 25 knots, small craft there. Southern outside waters, east winds to 20 knots, east winds to 15 knots as we get up further north to the Gustavus area with northeast winds 15 knots along that east Gulf Coast. By Monday, those north winds are going to persist at 25 knots coming down through Lynn Canal and Glacier Bay. East northeast winds 15 knots in the central inside waters with southeast winds 15 knots in the southern inside waters. Southern outside waters 15 knot winds out of the east and northeast winds 15 knots as you move on up towards the east Gulf Coast and outside of Yakutat Bay. For the south central region on Sunday, light and variable winds in Prince William Sound, east to northeast winds 15 knots along the north Gulf Coast to the Barren Islands, and then as we get around Kodiak Island, expect your winds to be out of the east-northeast about 20 to 25 knots right on up to Augustine. And then Cook Inlet, 10 to 15 knots out of the north-northeast. By Monday, 10 to 15 knot winds persisting in Cook Inlet, 15 knot winds out of the northeast across the Augustine region, 25 knot northeasterlies down through Shelikof Strait with east winds 20 knots south of Kodiak Island as well as east of the Barren Islands. Things don't change much in Prince William Sound as well as on the North Gulf Coast, light and variable to east-northeast 10 to 15 knots. Taking a look now at the Alaska Peninsula for Sunday, expect your winds on the south side of the peninsula to be at the east to northeast at 25 knots. Light winds in Bristol Bay, about 10 knot winds there. 20 knot winds out of the northeast on the north side of the Alaska Peninsula. By Monday, expect the winds to remain light out of the northeast 10 knots for Bristol Bay, east winds 20 knots on the north side of the peninsula, and east to northeast winds persisting on the south side of the peninsula at 25 knots. For the Aleutian Islands on Sunday, northeast winds 20 knots basically from Unalaska west to the Adak area and Mchitka area, except for south of the eastern Aleutian Islands where the winds will be out of the east at 15 knots. For the western Aleutian Islands, northeast winds to 20 knots. On Monday, the winds drop off to 15 knots out towards Shemya, remain 20 knots in the Mchitka area. Northeast winds 20 knots over the Atka to Adak area, and expect northeast winds 15 to 20 knots over the eastern Aleutian Islands out of the east to northeast. Taking a look now at the Bering Sea coastal waters, expect your winds to be out of the northeast 15 knots outside of Kuskokwim Bay. North of Nunivak Island, the winds will be northerly about 25 knots, 20 knot northerly winds up to the St. Lawrence Island region. St. Matthew Island down to the Pribilof Islands, expect your winds to be out of the northeast at 25 knots. On Monday, Winds are going to be pretty much north in the northern part of the Bering Sea from St. Lawrence Island down to St. Matthew Island and the north side of Nunivak Island at 20 knots. South of that area, northeast winds 20 knots outside of Kuskokwim Bay, with winds remaining northeast 25 knots in the Pribilof Islands. For the Arctic coastal waters, expect your winds outside of Kotzebue Sound to be out of the north at about 20 knots. 10 to 15 knot north-northwesterly winds from Point Hope on up towards Wainwright. 15 knot winds, variable 15 knots in the Barrow area. And winds on Sunday are going to be out of the east at about 20 to 25 knots from Prudhoe Bay over towards Kaktovik. By Monday, those winds switch around to the west at 15 knots. Northwest winds 10 knots off the coast of Barrow, and northwest winds 10 knots off the coast of Point Ley, with winds out of the north about 15 to 20 knots from Cape Lisburne down to just outside of Kotzebue Sound. For a quick recap, taking a look at tonight's forecast, basically expect some rain showers in the Panhandle, mixed with rain and snow up in the northern Panhandle, some rain and snow showers possible in the eastern Prince William Sound and northern Prince William Sound area. Rain showers over the Alaska Peninsula with a mixture of rain and snow over the eastern Aleutian Islands. Some snow showers are possible in the Pribilof Islands. Flurries and fog along the Arctic coast down through that Bering Strait region. By Sunday, basically some flurries and fog along the Arctic coast down through the Bering Strait region across much of the western interior. Flurries and fog over a lot of the eastern interior portion of the state. And this is the flurries and fog, particularly in the eastern interior, that's going to be early on in the day. It should be clearing out during the day. Chance of some snow showers into the Copper River Basin. Some rain showers are possible towards Yakutat. Sunnier conditions throughout much of southeast Alaska. Over towards the Alaska Peninsula, where there's a weak low pressure system there, a mixture of rain and snow showers can be expected over the eastern Aleutian Islands, with rain showers over the Alaska Peninsula in that Cold Bay area. Some snow showers are possible in the Pribilof Islands. We're out of time for the show this evening. Thank you for watching.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.